talk to Dan Hodges, see what he makes of it all. Dan, very good morning to you.
Morning.
So, a bit of a crash test dummy week so far, I would say, from Sunday to Wednesday. First they roll out Angela Rayner on Sunday, who didn't seem to know her backside from her elbow when she was talking about Syria. Keir Starmer ran off to the Middle East to do some business with some dodgy Saudi, hydrogen companies. And he's coming back for Prime Minister's questions today. Lammy didn't know that they were about to, suspend the asylum-seeking quests from Syrian refugees. It's all been a bit of a mixed message, hasn't it?
Yeah, a bit of a mixed bag, but I mean, not, in the scale of things, I don't think any, for once actually, not any particularly great dramas. I mean, I think the most significant thing is that Angela Rayner is actually out and about. She is there. She is still alive. They've let her out because obviously one of the big issues is that Angela Rayner has been pretty much sidelined since.
Yeah, well, on Sunday she proved why she was sidelined, and then they took her away for a week, for a day on Monday for some re-education and a bit of, rubber hose treatment in the back room, and then she got put out again on Tuesday because she'd been told what to say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think even Angela Rayner would claim that she's the world's biggest sort of Syria expert. So I wouldn't hold that one against her. I mean, look,
but she's supposed to be a housing expert. It's her brief, and she told Trevor Phillips, one, that there was plenty of housing in the UK, and then two, no, we have to build more housing. There's not enough housing. Well,
she's a bit of a housing expert, as we know, because she's got quite a few houses and had quite a few houses herself. But it is her brief. And no, I mean, I thought the main thing about what Angela Rayner was saying was, look, we're gonna put people before Newt. We're gonna put people.
Thank God for that.
Good, and I think we need more of that.
Why does it make me remember fondly Ken Livingstone?
Exactly, Ken loved a Newt.
He did.
Excuse me. Ken did love a Newt, so that might have been part of why we've got a bit of a housing crisis in London. That was fine. I mean, look, I've been critical of Keir Starmer's jet setting, but equally, you see what's happening in Syria. The fact that the Prime Minister's in the Middle East at a time of, huge upheaval and a crisis in the Middle East, I think that's perfectly understandable. Sorry, what was the third one? I can't remember.
The problem is, for me, he's always in the wrong bit of the Middle East. I wrote a piece this week for the Telegraph talking about how he always seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. When Syria was breaking, he should have been the guy sitting in front of Laura Kuenssberg, shouldn't he? Or David Lammy should have been the guy sitting in front of Laura Kuenssberg, instead of which it was Angela Rayner. And she didn't get it very right at all, and it made it look as if one part of the government didn't know what the other part was talking about. Pat McFadden wheeled out, right, on Monday to try and sort of cover up the cracks. He then got it wrong about the new terrorist group which is running Syria. He said, we might have to rethink whether or not we take the terrorist tag off them. Keir Starmer, about an hour later, said, no, we're not even considering that. David Lammy then stands up in Parliament and denies to Richard Tice from Reform that they're thinking about doing what Austria, Germany and France have done, which is to suspend all asylum-seeking claims from Syria, without realising that Yvette Cooper, literally 5 minutes later, was going to say exactly that. So, I mean, it seems to me the vision of the government is that it's very incompetent right now.
I think of those, the most serious one is the fact that it seemed that David Lammy was not aware what Yvette Cooper was about to announce, and I think that was a reflection of a lack of joined-up government. But I think the one thing that there hasn't been quite the focus on in relation to Syria is, you're absolutely right that in a sense the government has been caught on the hop by the collapse of the Assad regime and Assad's demise. But that's because, once again, our security services, our foreign policy experts, the Foreign Office, they seem to have been completely caught on the hop by this as well. And once again, it does seem that, at the moment, we do not have the expertise to accurately understand what is going on in these world trouble spots. And if I was going to sort of point the finger at criticism, I think that's where we need to have some question marks about, why again do we just seem not to have seen the implosion of the Assad regime coming, because we have a lot of very, very well-paid, highly trained, supposedly, highly expert, supposedly, people who are supposed to be abreast of this. And again, they were the ones that were caught on. So I think that's the real issue here, rather than the fact that, that there was a bit of a mix-up within.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, again, I'm wishing not to damage my reputation here, but to be fair to Labour, I mean, I don't think anybody saw it coming, because I was talking to people 2 weeks ago when it began, when the sort of, the 13-day revolution started, and they moved from Idlib into Aleppo. Everybody said, oh, don't worry, because basically Assad will crush them. He will not allow any kind of resistance. He will not allow this kind of, insurrection to happen inside his own country. And nobody said at some point or other that, within a week or two, they're going to be in Damascus. Nobody saw it. No,
absolutely. And also, there is there's another aspect to this as well. I mean, you have to go back a little bit. But if you remember the time when Assad used chemical weapons on his own people, Obama famously drew his red lines and then backed off his red lines. Ed Miliband and Labour obviously voted against military action against Syria. At the time, we were told one of the reasons we couldn't do it is because if there was if Assad fell, it would be a potential catastrophe. There would be a power vacuum. We don't know what would come after it. It would destabilise the region, etc. Well, it's happened anyway, and I think the key thing is everybody is now saying this. It's suddenly saying this is a good thing. Well, if it's a good thing now, maybe we should have been a bit bolder. Which
takes me back to my favourite subject of Lord Ali. Lord Ali spent several hours with President Assad in Syria at the behest of Ed Miliband. It turns out he was sent there loads of times in 2013 and 2014. Part of his brief was to bring back a message to Ed Miliband: do not back David Cameron in his attempts to bomb Syrian forces, because it's the wrong thing to do. And I'd still like to hear from Lord Ali on all of this. I mean, he's already admitted doing it in the House of Lords, several years ago. But, what on earth was he doing? Who was he representing? Why was he, in some way, protecting President Bashar al-Assad? I think we deserve to know, given the relevance now of his role in what is the current government.
No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I wrote about it at the time, and I think we talked about it. It wasn't just that Lord Ali was doing that little bit of what appeared to be sort of freelance diplomacy or diplomacy in relation to Assad. He was also out in Iraq as well.
Yeah, right. Iraq. But you call it freelance diplomacy, but he must have been operating on behalf of somebody.
Well, the point is we don't know, do we?
Right.
And that is one of the things, I mean, I remember saying at the time, again, that we do come back to this, that in opposition we were promised this, this great new transparency. Keir Starmer was going to let a light shine on the workings of government. Well, we'd quite like to know have a light shining on some of the workings of what was going in opposition.
Right.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I think that's a question. I mean, the thing about Assad is there was a time when there were a lot of people, hot-footing out Syria to break bread with Assad, because Assad was a bit of a sort of a great hope for the West, that he was some liberal moderniser, and well, let's look how well that worked out. Yeah. But fair enough. I mean, obviously that's what you would expect to happen at the time. But as you said, it did seem that although details are a little bit sketchy, that Lord Ali was out there when basically we knew Assad was a wrongman, and as you said, what was he doing there? And most importantly, why was he there?
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't know of any other kind of cause that Lord Ali has particularly backed or has been particularly active in pursuing, other than visiting Assad and, as you say, going to Iraq after the war. I mean, it's a very odd and slightly curious method of doing things, it seems to me.
I mean, and again, I don't, we had to dig around about this. I had to dig around about this. I couldn't find any examples of Lord Ali having any significant, any great foreign policy expertise at all. And if you look at his speeches since he was in the Lords, it's not been a great area of focus.
I mean, it's like he was good on breakfast TV. Might as well send Eamon Holmes out to talk to him, and go, what do you make of it?
Exactly. I mean,
Geldof actually at least has some experience in Africa.
Geldof actually has some foreign policy experience. Yeah. So it is a very strange one, and I mean, well, it will be interesting to see now Assad's gone if we, obviously people will be, I'm sure people, we saw this post the fall of Iraq. A lot of documents came out about some of the people who'd been out there palling around with the former regime. Obviously, it'd be quite interesting to see who's, if we get any further information about palling around with Assad.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's talk a bit about things closer to home. Iqbal Mohammed, the MP, got up yesterday in Parliament, shocked a few people by trying to convince us all that first cousins really should be allowed to marry. We might have to phase it out over time, but let's not be too hasty because it's a cultural thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually genuinely quite sickening to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right. I mean, the thing, apart from, set aside, the actual, the merits of the issue. I mean, I said this yesterday. I don't understand why it's taken us so long to make these moves.
Yeah. I mean, most people I speak to thought it was already illegal, to be honest.
Well, exactly. Well, I'm exactly the same. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I mean, I've got to say. I mean, I saw the Tories yesterday. I saw Robert Jenrick doing Robert Jenrick's thing again, jumping up and saying it's an absolute disgrace. This should have been banned years ago. Well, fine. But the Tories were in power for 14 years. They had 14 years to ban it. So I'm not entirely sure why they're jumping on the bandwagon all of a sudden. But the thing is, I mean, we constantly try to get the balance right on this stuff. We talk about diversity. We talk about multiculturalism. People like me, push back frequently on, what I see in certain areas as some pretty bad Islamophobia. A guy like this pops up. What's the point? Yeah. What is the point when someone who has been elected basically on a platform of making himself a major spokesman for the Muslim community stands up in the House of Commons and comes out with that absolute disgusting rubbish? I mean, what is the point? He's cementing every negative stereotype. Yeah. Muslims that exist in this country. I mean, he frankly should be ashamed of himself.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's finish up with the farmers. They're all coming into town today in London, demonstrating against this inheritance tax increase. 500 tractors arriving in London today. Tens of thousands of farmers, according to a text I've got here from Tony. It's not going away, this, is it?
It's not. No, it's not going away, and it's fair enough for the farmers. They obviously feel aggrieved. They feel hard done by. I've got to be honest, I don't currently feel this is one that's shaking the government to its core. Again, speaking to MPs, Labour MPs, Labour ministers last week, actually what they were saying is, they don't enjoy the protests, they don't welcome the protests. But the thing that worries Labour MPs, and again, I wrote about this on Sunday, the thing that worries Labour MPs really worries ministers is the whole winter fuel issue, especially now we're getting towards Christmas, weather's starting to get much colder. That is the issue that they're really scared about. And they actually see this as a bit of a distraction from that. And they actually think, crucially, that Kemi Badenoch and the Tories are getting distracted by this. And that we've seen a lot of focus from the Tories about the farmers, obviously because they're a natural constituency for them. But we're not seeing the same push from the Tories on winter fuel. So in a way, although obviously no opposition to the government is welcome to any government, I actually think if the farmers are dominating the headlines and that is knocking freezing pensioners off the headlines, I think frankly Labour will take that at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. Dan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Dan Hodges, commentator from the Mail on Sunday.